Menglong's story has taken a chilling turn. In the days before everything changed, people now realize there were signs, small, quiet warnings scattered across his social media, his interviews, and even his final public appearance. He had been trying to tell the world something. Something dark. Something he wasn't allowed to say out loud. But no one listened. And now the silence feels deafening. When you look back, it almost feels scripted. How every warning was brushed aside as overthinking. How every anxious glance was masked behind his perfect smile. For months, fans noticed subtle shifts in his tone. He seemed distant, tired, like a man carrying the weight of secrets too heavy to hold. In one livestream, he mentioned feeling trapped in an endless rehearsal. At the time, people thought he was talking about burnout. But what if he meant something else entirely? Those who knew him best, coworkers, close friends, even longtime fans, are now piecing together fragments of what could have been his quiet cry for help. Menglong had always been known as the calm one, the charming, disciplined, polite artist who never stirred controversy. He smiled through exhaustion. He endured the pressure with grace. And that, perhaps, was his greatest disguise. Because beneath that perfection, insiders now say he was being pushed too far. Whispers from within the entertainment company suggest that Menglong had been unhappy for a long time. He was reportedly asking for more creative control, something unheard of under his management. His requests were ignored. His opinions dismissed. And then came the threats. Not the kind you see in movies, but the quiet, professional ones that sound polite but cut deep. You're replaceable. You signed the contract. You owe us. He was surrounded by walls, legal, emotional, and psychological. And little by little, those walls closed in. In the weeks before the tragedy, Menglong's closest friend shared that he began keeping his phone turned off more often. He avoided events. He refused press interviews. He seemed paranoid, like someone was watching him. One insider revealed. He would look over his shoulder constantly. Sometimes he'd whisper things like, "They won't let me go." We thought he was exaggerating. Now I'm not sure anymore. It wasn't just paranoia. It was fear. Fear that he couldn't say what he truly wanted. Fear that he was being controlled. Fear that his life was no longer his own. When the news broke of his sudden disappearance, fans flooded the internet with confusion. The company's official statement was brief. Too brief. Menglong is taking time off for personal health reasons. But that one sentence raised more questions than answers. No timeline. No medical details. No photo, no message, nothing from Menglong himself. Just silence. And when fans started asking questions, the posts vanished. Comments were deleted. Accounts that mentioned his name mysteriously disappeared. It was as if someone was trying to erase him, not just from the news, but from memory. But then, days later, came the discovery. Private footage leaked online. Brief, grainy, unverified. It showed Menglong at a studio parking lot late at night. He looked thin, exhausted. He appeared to be arguing with someone just outside the frame. And before the video cuts off, his voice is heard saying, "Tell them I warned you." That line has haunted millions ever since. Tell them I warned you. Was it a message to fans? To his friends? Or to the world about what was really happening behind closed doors? Investigators are now quietly reopening files related to his management company. It's not just about one artist anymore. There have been reports of other performers under the same agency suffering mysterious injuries, sudden withdrawals from public life, or health-related disappearances. Each time, the pattern is eerily familiar. A rising star. A sudden break. A vague explanation. And then silence. One staff member who has since resigned from the company revealed in an anonymous statement that Menglong was preparing to break his contract. He was done being controlled. He wanted out. But the company, reportedly, had other plans. They told him to stay quiet, the whistleblower said. They told him to act happy, go on camera, and smile. He refused. That's when everything started falling apart. Within weeks, his projects were postponed. His endorsements canceled. Rumors began to spread about him being difficult to work with. The image that once made him beloved was now being used to destroy him. And then the final post appeared. On his official page, Menglong shared a black screen with one cryptic caption: "Freedom has a price." It stayed up for just 12 minutes before it was deleted. But screenshots spread across the internet like wildfire. Many brushed it off as metaphorical. But now it's impossible to read it the same way. What did he mean by freedom has a price? What did he know that others didn't? A few days before his disappearance, one of his stylists recalled that Menglong gave her a strange request. He asked her to return an envelope to his apartment if anything happened to him. She didn't understand what he meant, but she took it. When the news of his death broke, she finally opened it. Inside was a handwritten note. 4 words. They can't silence truth. No one knows what the note referred to, but it was enough to ignite an online firestorm. Fans began connecting dots between his last interviews, his public exhaustion, and the cryptic posts that followed. It wasn't coincidence anymore. It was a message. He was trying to warn everyone. As weeks went by, the investigation grew stranger. A source close to the case revealed that some of his data, personal emails, voice memos, photos, had been wiped clean just hours after he was declared missing. The deletion logs, according to experts, required administrative access, meaning someone powerful enough to control his accounts was involved. Why would anyone delete a man's personal history? Unless, of course, it contained something they didn't want discovered. Meanwhile, fans began digging through archives, watching old interviews for clues. In one particular talk show, Menglong had been asked what advice he'd give his younger self. He paused for a long moment, smiled faintly, and said, "Be careful who you trust when the lights turn off." At the time, the host laughed it off. Now that sentence feels prophetic. It wasn't a random thought. It was a warning disguised as reflection. Rumors have surfaced that Menglong was planning to expose unethical practices within the industry. Contracts that forced artists to overwork, exploitative management, even mental and physical mistreatment masked as discipline. If that's true, then his disappearance wasn't random at all. It was suppression. His voice, his influence, his growing courage. All of it became dangerous to those who profited from silence. Now, as investigators quietly comb through footage, documents, and witness testimonies, one thing is becoming clear. This is bigger than Menglong. His story represents a much deeper, darker truth about what happens behind the polished curtain of fame, where smiling faces hide sleepless nights, where talent is treated like property, where voices are bought, censored, and erased. He tried to warn everyone, not just his fans, but the industry itself. And the cost of that warning was his life. In recent days, international organizations have